another Time Travel Tuesday where we combine tingles with nostalgia as decided by you. So for this week's Time Travel Tuesday, I held another themed vote where I asked all of you to tell me your favorite candy from the 1980s. So coming in at number 5 for candy of the 80s, we had a tie between Now and Later's and Hubba Bubba bubblegum. And I have to say I'm very glad personally that Now and Later's wasn't the winner, because you don't want to see me eat that candy. You really don't. Coming in at number 4 was Razzles. Number 3 was Pop Rocks. Number 2 was Nerds. And number 1, Big League Chew. Now real quick, before I tell you what I know about Big League Chew bubblegum, I want to let you know that this week I'm going to do yet another themed vote, but this time instead of being from any specific decade or era, it can be from any era, anytime, but I want to know your favorite childhood toy. So maybe you played with Light Bright, or maybe you had a Furby, or something else. Maybe you had a Skip It. So next week's Time Travel Tuesday will be your favorite childhood toy, no matter when you were born. Cool. Also, before I get started, I will warn you now that there will be a little bit of gum chewing in this video, because, I mean, you can't buy a pouch of Big League Chew and not have some. So I will be chewing some gum, and I know that's not a favorite for many people. Personally, it's not even for me as far as ASMR videos. So for those of you who are not a fan of gum chewing, as a trigger, I'm going to leave in the description, I'll mention what time in the video the chewing starts and what time it ends, so you don't have to be unpleasantly surprised by chewing. You can just skip right over that part. Or for those of you who absolutely love it, you can skip right to it. So just wanted to let you know, give you fair warning. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you everything that I know about Big League Chew shredded bubblegum. Now, I have never chewed this gum in my life, and I know some of you can't believe it, but I just never have. So this will be the first time I try it later on in the video. I'm looking forward to it, because I know it's very popular. So I chose the ground ball grape flavor because, from what I understand, it's one of their most popular flavors. So that's the one I chose. And I went to a specialty sort of old-timey candy shop in my city, thinking that I would go there and I'd be able to find the original 1980s packaging. And I even called ahead to see if they had it, and someone mistakenly told me that they did. And I was a bit disappointed when I arrived to find that they only carried the newer packaging. So for those of you who have fond memories of the old packaging of this gum, I sincerely apologize. Couldn't find it. And for those of you who have never seen it, you're missing out, because because it's just the most bizarre cartoon I've ever seen. It's kind of hideous, but it's very well, it's a sort of, I don't know, I guess kind of a trademark of this gum. Made it unique. So yeah, I couldn't find it. Okay, so moving on to what I know about this gum. So Big League Chew is a brand of bubblegum. And what is unique about it is that it is shredded. So it's in little shredded strips. And it's packaged in a little foil pouch, like this one. It is made shredded like that. It's made to resemble chewing tobacco, which is very popular habit among Major League Baseball players, or was. I don't know if it still is. I'm not very knowledgeable about baseball, to tell you the truth. So, Big League Chew was introduced in May of 1980. And the original packaging that I told you about was originally designed by a man called Bill Mayer. Now that's not the same person that does this artwork. This is a new artist, someone else. But Big League Chew was created by a baseball player by the name of Rob Nelson. And he was a pitcher for the Portland Mavericks. And he was a left-handed pitcher, interestingly enough. So one night, Nelson was sitting in the bullpen with another player on the team named Jim Bouton. Jim Bouton. Now, Jim was actually a former New York Yankees. What did he play? I'm actually not sure his position, but he was a New York Yankees all-star baseball player. And at the time, he was he had sort of left baseball and then returned, but he returned to kind of smaller leagues, I guess. So he was playing with Rob Nelson on the Portland Mavericks. And one night, they were sitting in the bullpen together, just chatting. And they were discussing how gross and off-putting and silly it was when their fellow teammates would chew tobacco and then spit tobacco juice onto one another's very nice, clean, white cleats, which are their special shoes. So they were talking about that, because neither of them were tobacco users themselves. And they thought that it was just kind of a nasty, unhealthy thing to do, which it is. So anyway, they were discussing that, and Rob Nelson for several years had kind of had the idea that he would like to have a shredded chewing gum that could sort of emulate the experience of chewing tobacco without being disgusting and, making him sick. Because he himself was a very big fan of the second baseman Nellie Fox. He loved him. And Nellie Fox always had a big wad of tobacco in his mouth. And so Rob Nelson, as a kid, would get a big chunk of bazooka gum, put it in his cheek so he could look like Nellie Fox because he thought he looked so cool. And he wanted to be like him. So he'd come up with that shredded gum idea. So when he and Jim Bouton started talking about it, he brought up his idea. Now Jim Bouton was a very savvy, kind of business knowledgeable man with a very strong sort of entrepreneurial spirit. And he thought the idea was brilliant. So, at the end of that season, I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe that was Jim Bouton's last season of baseball. At the end of that season, they became business partners and went into production of the gum. Now, a little side note about Jim Bouton. It's very interesting. He, at the time, had written a book that was extremely controversial and even resulted in him being basically blacklisted from baseball for a time. He made himself a lot of enemies with this book. It was called Ball 4. That's right. Ball 4. And it was sort of a diary / memoir that revealed a lot of not so nice things about things that went on in Major League Baseball. Just some of the obscene things that the players would say, and drug use. Sort of the inner drama of some of these teams, and he named names and gave he talked about specific events, and he made a lot of people really angry, especially Mickey Mantle. But if I understand the story correctly, he actually didn't have really terrible things to say about Mickey Mantle in the book. So, Mickey Mantle himself might not have been angry, but his fans maybe. Anyway, there was a man named Bowie Kuhn, I think was his name. And he was the sort of Major League Baseball commissioner, I think was his title. And he, after the book came out, he tried to force statement that said that everything in the book was fictional. But Jim Bouton refused to do that. So anyway, he got himself in a pretty bad way with other Major League Baseball players. He was never invited to events and important dinners and things like that for a long time. I think it eventually kind of cleared his name, but for a long time he was not very liked in that world. Anyway, that's just a little side trivia. Okay, so Rob and Jim were getting ready to start trying to produce this gum. But Rob, who was sort of in charge of producing it, whereas Jim was more in charge of the business side of things and whatnot, Rob didn't know how to make bubblegum at all. But as luck would have it, in an issue of People magazine, he found a homemade bubblegum kit. So he ordered some. He ordered the kit, started making bubblegum, and then shredding it up with apparently a pizza cutter. And they began to try and sell it to some companies. And they got rejected by every single company they pitched to. Companies didn't think it was right for them. Until they found this company called Amaral, or Amural. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce it, so I'm going to say Amaral. Now, Amaral was owned by Wrigley. We're all familiar with Wrigley. So what Rob and Jim had been doing is having everyone they pitched to sign a disclosure form that basically said, we'll share our idea with you, because it wasn't patented. It said, we'll share our idea with you, but you have about 24 hours to tell us if someone there is already working on something like that. Basically just to protect themselves and protect the companies as well. So it turns out that Amaral came forward and said, actually, about 6 years ago, someone here figured out how to make shredded gum, but they hadn't been able to figure out a way to market it. They just had shredded gum and they didn't know what to call it or do with it. They didn't know how to make it something that would sell. And so Rob and Jim, they had a concept for shredded gum, and they had a name already picked out. And so there it was. And that's how Bigley Chew was born. It was perfect. So, early on, before they really started to release the gum, Rob and Jim did a sort of test to see how well this product would sell, because there was nothing out there like this at the time. It was so unique. So they had no real way of knowing how well it would do. So they went into the town, into the city where Amaral was located, which was Naperville, Illinois. I think I'm saying that right. And they took about 12 sort of test pouches, like sample pouches of the gum, and left them in with a clerk at a convenience store around lunchtime one day. And they just said, here, sell these. Put these out and sell them, if you can. And they went out and got some lunch. When they came back from their lunch, they went into the store and they didn't see the packages out. They didn't see that the clerk had even set them out, and they said, hey, we thought you were going to put these out for us. Where are they? And the clerk said, I did. And they all sold out. Just during lunch. At that point, they were pretty confident that they were going to be successful. And I think it's interesting that there's been some controversy about this gum in particular, kind of like with the candy cigarettes, that it encourages children to start chewing tobacco. And it makes sense that if they do it with gum, that later on in life they'll move on to the harder stuff. What's interesting is that the two creators were not tobacco users themselves, and actually created Big League Chew as an alternative to chewing tobacco. And they've said that multiple times. So, as I've told you already, the packaging that you see here is not the original packaging from the 1980s. So around the early 90s, it was decided that the packaging needed some updating, because it had the same packaging for kind of a long time. So they brought on a man named Gary Rose to redo the packaging. And so that's what you see here. This is the work of Gary Rose. And his goal for the new packaging was to sort of make it, he said he wanted to make it more about baseball and less about characters. Which, the old packaging was very much about characters, if you recall. So around the end of 2010, Rob Nelson, who at this point owns the company entirely, he bought Jim Bouton's share. So he's the sole owner. So around the end of 2010, he moved from Wrigley to a company called Ford Gum and Machines. And the major reason for that is that Wrigley was actually bought out by the Mars Company. And so, sort of, a product like this was probably going to take kind of a back seat in a company as big as Mars. And at that point they were producing this out of Mexico too, and Rob Nelson wanted to bring it back into the States for production. So he went over to this company, called Ford Gum and Machines. But what was interesting was that at the end of his contract with Wrigley contacted him, and because they realized that they had a lot of leftover packages that they hadn't sold. They had 180,000 of these, to be exact, that were just surplus. And Wrigley, of course, no longer had rights to distribute the gum because it was moved over to the other company, Ford Gum. So, what Rob Nelson decided he wanted to do was buy all of those extra pouches and send them over to soldiers overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan and whatnot. What ended up happening, though, was that Wrigley took care of it themselves at no cost to Rob Nelson. So he didn't have to purchase them. They all just got sent over to the troops. I thought that was a nice gesture. So, there is a player of the Detroit Tigers named Nate Robertson. And around 2006, it said that Nate Robertson started chewing Big League Chew when his teammates were up to bat. And it became kind of like a thing on the team. They called it gum time. And it became this sort of like rallying force for the team, which is interesting. Kind of pumped him up anytime Nate would chew some gum. Some of this gum. Also of interest, there was a news piece that reported that former President George W. Bush liked to chew Big League Chew gum. So when Amaral found out about that, they sent the president a case of Big League Chew with his likeness on it, with his face, his own face. And I believe it was in this flavor, because I guess George W. likes the grape kind. And also Rob Nelson himself, the creator of Big League Chew, has said that the grape flavor is his favorite as well. Okay. Now, before I try some of the gum, I'm going to read to you the little blurb on the back. This used to not be there in the old packaging. It's a little history of the gum, but it used to have, right around here, I think it used to say something like man-size wads. So you get a big man-size wad of gum. And it would say similar stuff on the back, but now it has a little history of the company, or the gum. So I'm going to read it to you real quick. It says, one summer night, long ago, Portland Mavericks left-hander Rob Nelson came up with a fun, new bubblegum idea. Shredded gum in a pouch. He called it Big League Chew. Rob's teammate, Jim Bouton, called it the best idea to ever come out of a bullpen. Jim found a gum company to make Big League Chew, and it quickly became the must-have bubblegum for ball players of all ages. Today, over 30 years later, Big League Chew is the fun gum that keeps your mouth from getting dry when the game is on the line. It is the #1 selling shredded bubblegum in the world. Cool. I'm going to tear the package open. Oh wow, I can instantly smell grape bubblegum. It's very potent aroma of grape. I don't know, let me show you inside. So there's the big chunk of gum. It's kind of purpley gray colored. We get some. Really excited. I've been wanting to try this all day, but I had to wait. I'm just gonna get the whole chunk out. Okay, well here's a bit of it. Oh, it looks really purple on screen. That's good. So it's all shredded up to be like chewing tobacco. I'm not gonna put all this in my mouth because I'm not insane. But I imagine that kids who used to chew this stuff would try and like fit the whole wad of it in their mouth. And apparently the bubble ability of this gum is outstanding. It smells awesome, by the way. And I'm not normally a fan of grape flavored things. I really like the feel of it. I know it's all kind of stringy. Cool. It seems really soft, also, but still like holds its shape well. Keep dropping it. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit chewing sounds. You should probably go ahead and skip ahead now. Here we go. This might have been too big a chunk. Wow, this is very tasty. It's very, very sweet. And a little tart. But it's so like soft. It's really, really soft. It's almost like a liquid, kind of. It's not tough at all. It's super soft. It's really juicy. I'm gonna have a little bit more. It smells so good. I totally understand now what the hype is about. I love this. See inside there. It's so fun to just look at too. Like pretend that it's actual tobacco. I've never chewed tobacco in my life. Okay. I'm gonna attempt a bubble. Okay. I'm gonna try one more thing. I'm gonna try the bubble in a bubble trick. I used to be really good at it as a kid. Okay. Well, I did it. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. Well, that's enough gum chewing. I've never done gum chewing in a video before, so for those of you who are still watching who enjoy that as a trigger, I hope that I've done it justice. If not, I do apologize. So I'm gonna go take this out. Okay guys, I'm back with no gum chewing. So, I very much hope that you have enjoyed this week's Time Travel Tuesday. And please remember to vote in the comments below for your favorite childhood toy for next week's Time Travel Tuesday topic. And again, it doesn't have to be from any decade or any era. Just your favorite toy. And I'm really excited about this one. I'm really excited to see what the top some interesting new facts about Big League Chew. Because I certainly did. And I'll be seeing you guys again very soon. But until then, sweet dreams, time travel.